Welcome, badass mofos from the Black Army Radio realm. Welcome. It is Monday, and we don't have anything to talk about, do we, Joel? How we doing?
Uh, I I wish, like, we wanted to do this fun, like, weird UFO, religion, apocalypse podcast, ancient history podcast, and shit just keeps getting spoon-fed at a rapid rate, you know? I'm doing good, though,
You
Ty.
don't
I,
say.
uh,
Yeah,
I
dude.
signed up for all my hunting stuff today, did all my preference points and tags, and that always makes me feel a little closer to September. I start to get the itch, start
Right?
shooting my bow again. So it's always
That's a good reminder.
for all the people.
I gotta do that here, man. We
Yeah,
got shit, 2 kids,
deadline
2
days
grown-ups with
tomorrow.
tags right now. Yeah, I need
Deadline
to get
days
on that.
tomorrow, man. So get on it.
All right. All right. Welcome to episode number 12. Humans, we had some interesting events over the weekend. Also, happy Easter for those of you out there that celebrate Easter. Or just hope you had a good weekend. You know what I'm saying? We had a pretty interesting Easter message from our commander. And I don't know. I think this was the most unhinged tweet I've ever, or truth. I'm sure it was probably a truth, right? He always talks about, like, remember when he was that Joe Kent was truthing, he was truthing the thing. It's like nobody's
Right.
truthing, bro. You're
Nobody.
truthing. That's cool. Anyway, I'm gonna read this. So a couple things we're gonna get into. So obviously we had the F-15 that was shot down, right? We had a massive manhunt for the weapon specialist for that I guess it's the WSO weapon specialist officer, I believe. That those F-15Es are double seaters, kind of like the Top Gun, old school Top Gun, like Tomcats or whatever. You know, where you had like a
Right.
navigator and a weapons officer in the back, and you have your pilot in the front, similar to that. And so, massive manhunt. I think that there's a lot more to the story with that sucker, and we're gonna get into it. Like, we're probably gonna have a pretty decent conversation about what the narrative is, and about what I kinda think happened based on some of the shit I'm hearing from some boys, you know what I'm saying, that are still in the game a little bit. And so, here is Donald Trump's tweet, which was at 8:03 AM Easter Sunday. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one, in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch, all capitals. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump.
Oh my
Praise be to
God.
Allah, bro. I mean, out of all this stuff,
I
like, we're gonna
mean,
talk about some of this other stuff. Yeah, man, go
I
ahead.
think
That's
when when I first heard that, like, I went through this mix of emotions when I was reading it, and, like, from, like, a satire point of view. Like, when he was saying, like, bridges and roads, I was like, power plants is like, "Oh, maybe he's talking about restructuring our next spending bill. He's gonna fix some of our shit." And then, I knew that wasn't gonna happen, and as you read it, it just gets more and more fucking unhinged. Let's admit to war crimes. Let's say, "Praise be Allah" at the end of a tweet on Easter. Like,
on Easter,
what
bro.
about just like happy Easter, and I pray for anyone who's affected by this war. Like, how about something fucking presidential, not fucking we're gonna send you to hell and fucking what the fuck, man? It's so crazy.
You crazy bastards. Open the fucking straight, you crazy. Remember when we just did a podcast about this. We did talk president his talking points right from that speech. He gave a 20-minute speech,
Right.
which for him is basically like a
Once
short. It's like a reel. Like it's like a Facebook reel basically. Right now Joel was being attacked by a mountain lion in his house.
fucking
And so he's handling that situation as we speak. It's going to work out, I
fucking
hope, for him.
cat.
It's weird how that
Yeah,
happens in
we'll
Denver.
survive.
But it's like, dude, also, one of the things we talked about based on that speech, how many he said what did he say specifically to all of our NATO friends, all of our allies, when he talked about opening the Strait of Hormuz? It's easy. It'll be easy. Or the other thing he said, he's just gonna open naturally. It's just gonna open naturally. He's like, it's easy. It's gonna open naturally. In between all the wars on, wars off, everybody's dead, everybody's alive, shit. And so apparently, so we lost. Actually, I'm not going to get into that right now, but we lost a lot of air. We've lost over the weekend, we lost a tremendous amount of taxpayer funded technology that was shot out of the sky or our boys intentionally demoed themselves. And there's mixed stuff on that. And so, one thing I wanted to look at, because we talk about Israel and the United States and like these kind of things, all, like what international law really means when it comes to like the Geneva Convention. And the Geneva Convention was obviously put in place because we were carpet bombing people and killing them by, I said hundreds of thousands, but it's really millions. I mean, do you think World War II was like 60 plus million people, whatever, died? I mean, it was an astronomical amount of human beings. So you're really talking about a civilian casualty rate in the millions, probably in the tens of millions. And so, like, the
Right.
reason why the Geneva Convention and all that shit happened was to stop all that shit. Just like we talked about World War I with mustard gas, and like Vietnam, they stopped using, you know, Agent
White
Orange
phosphorus.
and white phosphorus, even though Israel's using white phosphorus in Lebanon as we speak, and there's tons of video of it. And so, like, let's just like actually really dial down what that means. When you're talking about hitting power plants, bridges, and water treatment facilities, because the water treatment facility, remember, was from the previous deal. Remember the previous thing where you guys have
Yep.
5 days, and then he went from 5 days to 10 days because Iran every single 5 minutes was like, no, we're not negotiating. We don't give a shit. And so he extended it. So here's basically
Why
verbatim.
and
Under, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, and that was when we were taking a 5-day ceasefire and Israel was bombing all the things that we said we weren't gonna bomb. So, I mean,
Correct.
same difference as far
Mhm.
as Iran
And so
sees it,
Israel did,
so
yeah, and Israel did all this shit in Gaza, and they're doing it in Lebanon now. So everything that we're going to talk about, which is only going to be a couple minutes because it's pretty brief, has already been done. Like we're kind of taking a playbook out of them now because we've hit five to 700 schools in Iran, like 10 universities. We've killed professors, college students. We've taken out bridges, tons of civilian infrastructure. We're hitting neighborhoods. It's real. We're kind of
and
performing like Tehran's getting carpet bombed right now. I mean, like carpet bombed. And Tehran, like you can just Google Tehran like on your phone and you can see the city. Like you can see humans and people and like they have pretty good infrastructure and like it's a no shit working fucking city. Like at the bottom of the mountains. It kind of reminds me of Salt Lake a little bit. You know what? You see the pictures of Salt Lake, it's got the big mountains like right behind it. You know what I'm saying? Like right there
right.
on the postcards of Salt Lake. It's pretty Tehran's real similar to that. It's got massive mountains like right there. It's actually but they're getting carpet bombed right now, big time. And so Article 54 of additional protocol 1 of the Geneva Convention um strictly prohibits to attack, destroy, or render useless objects indispensable to the survival of the civilian population. Now, remember, all of this shit was done to protect the civilian population because they're not combatants, they're civilians. Okay, they're the people we say we care so much about, right? Just like what did he do? He just got caught, or actually admitted it, that he gave a bunch of arms to the Kurds, and the Kurds stole them because the
Yeah.
Kurds were supposed to give the arms to like the rebels in Iran, and that they supposedly the
Yeah.
arms never actually got into Iran. And he's like, I think the Kurds kept them. I think the Kurds kept the arms that we gave them. Fuck. Tell as old as time for the United States of America, right? We can't wait to give our money and weapon systems to the next people we're going to fight. And, I think the Kurds are some badass dudes, but that's just, par for the course for us. Okay. Drinking water installations and supplies are explicitly listed as protected objects. Drinking water installations and supplies are explicitly listed as protected objects. So when they talk about hitting the water treatment plants, that's obviously a violation of that. Power plants are also considered indispensable because their destruction often causes what's called cascading failures for like water pumping, healthcare, food distribution. Like think about all the stuff, right? If you lose power, you lose electricity. I mean, everything that goes along with that. You can go out there, you can think about this yourself and how your life is. What would it be like if you lost power, if the restaurants didn't have power, if the schools didn't have power, if the hospitals, especially, right, didn't have power? That would be a really, really big problem. Also, core principles of the laws of war. So even if, let's say, there's a water treatment plant that doubles is like Israel loves to do this, right? But like every single, even though Gaza looks like Dresden and there's like nothing left, they're like that apartment complex had a Hamas facility underneath it. That hospital that we double tapped on live television at noon in broad daylight, while we killed all the paramedics that were responding in the second strike, had a Hamas facility underneath. Everything had a Hamas facility underneath it. Everything, right? Because that's how you justify it. Well, there's also distinctions for that as well, and it's intentional for that specific reason. So an attack on any of those facilities must still adhere to three distinct principles via the Geneva Convention. One is actually called distinction. Okay, combatants must always distinguish between civilian objects and military objectives. Direct attacks on civilian infrastructure is forbidden. That's under the distinction clause. The next clause, proportionality. An attack is illegal if the expected incidental civilian harm, death, injuries, or destruction, for example, is excessive compared to the direct military advantage gained. All right. And then the last one is called precautions of the three rules, basically. Attackers must take all feasible precautions to minimize civilian harm, such as choosing specific weapons or timing to avoid civilian casualties and especially civilian deaths. It's pretty goddamn obvious and it's right there. And in this, we've kind of watched Israel in Gaza and now in Lebanon. Nobody's talking about fucking Lebanon. Remember we talked about that? Like Christians, hello, American Christians
Yeah,
out there. Lebanon
that's
is wildly Christian. It's
that's a
anciently Christian. Go ahead.
and this is when like the whole like weird holy war connotation of like the second temple and the rebuilding of the third temple and like the Christian Zionist thing is like really makes a lot of sense and like are they trying to treat this as a holy war, you know? Like because how they're attacking Lebanon because Lebanon's been trapped in between the extreme Muslim and the Jews for a long time, you know, and they've gone
Oh
back
yeah.
and forth with how they feel about these terrorist groups because they are a Christian nation and they don't have the ties to either of the or not they don't have ties to all the proxies in that region, you know, so they kind of been stuck in the middle of it, you know, and now they're just getting fucking
Yeah.
carpet bombed and they just been kind of chilling, you know.
Dude, they're killing. They're destroying their entire. The Israelis are openly saying that they're destroying all their neighborhoods. These neighborhoods in southern Lebanon on purpose, and there's tons of video of them just absolutely obliterating entire villages of people. And so Lebanon has Hezbollah. So Hezbollah is the sect that kind of is funded by Iran that Israel has been fighting against as a proxy for a pretty long time. Like we said before, you have Hamas that's kind of like in Israel. And around Gaza, which is over there closer towards like Egypt area, like kind of southwesterny. And then you have the Houthis that come up from Yemen, which is south of Saudi Arabia. Okay. And they can either boat their asses up to Gaza and then launch in some shit or whatever. So you got the north and the middle and the south through proxies, and then you have Iran proper. And the people that are in Lebanon right now, and there's been a lot of reports of this, and there was even a gal who came on Piers Morgan last week, and Christian gal, I think, and she was basically talking about how like Iran is or Hezbollah is their freedom fighters. That's how she described
Right.
like the IRA. You know what I mean? Like basically how like people that were Catholics in Ireland described the IRA because the IRA was fighting against British Protestants, like
Right.
in the
Well,
north
and
of
that's
Ireland, up
kind
by
of crazy
Belfast.
what's happening here is this Christian Protestant Zionist thing is kind of what's taking over here and it's kind of I mean, sorry to cut you off, but like the
No, you're
just
good.
with the Easter Sunday. with Easter Sunday, they didn't have a Catholic, I don't know what I'm not a religious person, but they didn't have a Catholic service at
Mass,
the White House. It's the first time
mass. I
Catholic
grew up
mass at the
Catholic. I
White
can help you
House,
with
you
all
know?
that stuff. You
Yeah,
get a lot of
thank you.
good PT, man. You get a lot of good cardio as a Catholic. You're constantly sitting, kneeling,
Yeah,
standing, sitting,
up,
kneeling,
down.
standing. And it's mass. Catholic
Yeah.
mass. Yeah.
I
Go ahead.
I've been to a couple weddings and funerals for Catholics, and it was a lot of up, down, so I can only imagine what a mass is
It's
like.
very traditional.
So,
Yeah. Old
yeah.
school traditional.
And
The priest only gets like
and it's
10 or 15 minutes in the middle of the service to kind of do his own like independent sermon, but everything else in the
right,
Catholic mass is totally scripted. Like you can memorize it. I had it memorized when I was like
right,
8 from beginning to end of what they were going to do and say. Yeah. But the people in Lebanon are basically Lebanon doesn't have like a standing army. See, that's the thing. Like
yeah,
to fight against Israel. Like Israel isn't fighting against. This is what we were saying before, right? Israel's real big on fighting women and children. Real big on fighting women and children and basically like militants, like IRA style, like old school terrorism militants. And that's what's happening in Lebanon. They're killing thousands of people in Lebanon, and it's awful. A lot of them are Christian. And these people, like, they don't have anybody to defend them besides Hezbollah. You know what I mean? And it's not like they think Hezbollah is like the fucking next best thing smoking since sliced bread. But it's like if you have somebody who's willing to die for you just to like keep so you don't end up getting killed by this other sect, like if if you're living in a neighborhood in fucking Watts, Los Angeles, and you're getting hunted by the fucking Crips, are you gonna have a problem if a blood is protecting your house if you're not a
right,
blood? Like, no. That's basically what's going on in Lebanon. So like basically Israel's the Crips, the Bloods are fucking Hezbollah, the Bloods and Crips are fighting. You have regular people in neighborhoods, just like you have regular people in neighborhoods in South Chicago and LA. And it's like, hey, if you got a blood protecting your house because the Crips are invading, like, does that make you a bad fucking person to let that son of a bitch into your house to
right.
protect your family and your property? I don't fucking think so. It's kind of like that old saying, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that's how
and that's,
like Hezbollah is being seen in Lebanon right now as freedom fighters.
well, and it's different sects that BB in America has funded at different fucking times, you know? And it's like this you could have it one way or the other to play this middle ground, and then when the dog that you fed to grow big and badass starts biting you back, I mean, what do you expect? You know? I don't it's just I don't yeah, we
Yep.
meddle too much over there.
You think?
Yeah,
It's so
it's
much,
crazy.
dude. We meddle more over there than we meddle in the United States, dude. They don't give a fuck
Yeah,
about what happens in the United States, man. They're super invested in the Greater Israel Project and like Iran nuclear weapons. You know, they don't give a shit about Pakistan's nuclear weapons, North Korea's nuclear weapons, India's nuclear weapons, China's nuclear weapons, Russia's nuclear weapons, anybody else's nuclear weapons. And I'll tell you what, if Iran gets nuclear weapons, you know what's going to be funny? They're not going to give a shit about Iran's nuclear weapons either. They're going to stay the
no,
fuck away
they
from
will
them,
not.
just like they do everybody else. That's what'll happen. And so let's get into the news, baby, because this is actually really important because we talked about Trump gave that badass speech of all the winning we were doing and the fact that Iran's radar capabilities are gone. Their anti-aircraft, their
Uh-huh.
anti-period aircraft period has been period deleted period. Well, it didn't take
Those
them
are
long. Something tells me they were listening to his speech because the very next thing they did was kind of display their capabilities a little bit. And so I'll get into the official narrative via the Wall Street Journal. Like the Wall Street Journal is a pretty good like official narrative, like what's kind of like the American public is hearing, and like we don't do a whole lot of what American fucking Western liberal journalism is doing on this show because we don't give a shit about liberal Western journalism until they start showing us that they're actually fucking independent and can think on their own,
right,
which they're not doing and haven't done for decades. So basically, around 24 hours after Trump's speech about total air domination and control, remember Hegseth? Hegseth's big on the hand gestures. You know what I'm saying? He's big on like presentation. Hair is fucking perfect. beautiful son of a bitch. I hate him for that. Fucking beautiful head of hair. But it's like he's constantly doing things like presentational things. Like, you know, it's a
Right.
lot of this, like a lot of like judo looking shit. And
He kinda
when he
talks
was
like a
talking
woman,
about
uses
Iranian
his
airspace,
hands.
yeah. I remember he was basically doing this thing. He's like, we are circling over Tron like this. We're just circling over Tron at our own will, at our own discretion, doing anything we fucking want. Nobody can stop us. We're just hovering over Tron. And you know, it's pretty interesting because I actually think that Iran has probably, just like they kind of have for a long time. It seems like now, and it's pretty goddamn glaring that they've been withholding a lot of their capabilities, like with intention,
Yeah.
specifically for a moment like this to be surprising, and they're being surprising. So around 24 hours after Trump's speech about total air domination and control and all this other shit, here's what we kind of have. Now, this isn't finalized for total aircraft loss, but it's extensive. Okay. And like I said, this is pretty much through the grapevine. We haven't been real that wrong on this show. Actually, pretty much Western and liberal media has been catching up to us on what we've been saying for the last month. And so two A-10s, two A-10 Warthogs. Those are basically tank killers. They're cool as shit. Two A-10s, a CH-47 Chinook. But apparently that wasn't actually in flight. That was a drone. What I'm hearing is it was a drone that hit this sucker while it was on the ground. Okay. An F-15, an F-16 that had to make an emergency landing and became inoperable. A refueling tanker. So that would make 8 refueling tankers now. Two C-130 carriers, troop transport cargo carriers. Those are massive birds. 2 combat rescue helos, possibly, which would probably be Blackhawks, UH-60 Blackhawks, which is everybody sees in the movies. And at least 1, but possibly up to 4 MH-6 Little Birds. So the Little Birds are like those. Little Birds are big in the special operations community, especially with the tier 1 elements. They're basically like a flying little Volkswagen bug, you know, like the Magnum PI bird. You know, people have seen that now. They're a lot more familiar with it now than they used to be. I rode
Right.
primarily in Blackhawks. I did very, very, very little stuff in Little Birds, but they're cool as shit, those little things. And so that's 14 total, is 14 aircraft. 14 aircraft total, if they're all gone. Now the C-130s, supposedly CAG Delta destroyed them, and that might be the same thing with the Little Birds. I'm not sure, but the Little Birds would have had to have been used for the exfil of the F-15 pilot, and we'll get into that in a minute. But they probably couldn't have destroyed all those Little Birds because they would have had to have freaking exfilled somehow out of that. They were 200 miles behind enemy line, 200 miles into Iran in this area where this happened. You want to say anything before I get more into the official narrative from the Wall Street Journal?
No, I mean, more or less, I think there was more going on than I think we're gonna get into that than just rescuing the soldier, you know? They were
Right?
if they
Yeah.
had that
I
many
think
people that far in already, there was something else
mhm,
bigger happening.
right. And yeah, and that's totally what we'll get into because they actually had a couple hundred special operations dudes that were 200 miles back and were able to get on this CSAR, combat search and rescue, like fucking immediately, which tells me they were already there, probably doing something else. So here's the official narrative via the Wall Street Journal. Quote, an F-18 was shot down. The pilot was rescued really quickly. The other officer, the Weapons Systems Officer, or WSO, was wounded, but climbed up the side of a mountain and activated his transponder. The CIA quickly put out some psychological ops, psyops, as we used to call them back in the game, to lead Iranians away from where the pilot really was. Around 100 special operations individuals were brought in on C-130s with Little Birds inside the C-130s to conduct the actual rescue. Both C-130s got their landing wheels stuck in the sand. They had to destroy the C-130s plus 1 to 4 of the Little Birds. It's unclear how many. They have to bring in other aircraft and Reaper drones to fire on the advancing Iranians in the meantime, which is going to lead us to the badass, probably pretty ridiculous gunfight they got into back there in a minute. So that's basically the official narrative from the Wall Street Journal. Okay, but I'm going to recap this differently. All right, because it's a little bit odd. And then after I recap what kind of what they're saying to the general public, I'm going to go into what I think based on not just what I think based on my training and experience, but what I'm hearing kind of in the grapevine a little bit here. And so to recap, a U.S. F15E fighter jet got shot down over Iran, despite Trump saying beforehand that in his nationwide address, Iran has no anti-aircraft equipment and the radar has been 100% annihilated. The plane's weapons systems officer, which is described as a highly respected colonel, still nobody knows who this individual was. The name still has not been released. According to Trump, ejected from the plane and got seriously wounded. Seriously wounded. Quotes. He or she managed to hike up a 7,000-foot, 2-kilometer mountain ridgeline and hide inside of a cave or a crevice in the Zagros Mountains, despite his or her wounds. A U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone, that's unmanned, obviously, started killing all Iranian military-age males believed to be a threat who got within 3 kilometers or 3,000 meters of the Americans' location. Supposedly, and here's another thing, I'm also hearing that Reaper drone was dropped. I'm also hearing that Reaper drone might have been destroyed as well, which is interesting. I don't have as much information on that, but I have heard that Reaper drone was shot out of the sky. To retrieve him or her, the U.S. managed to seize an abandoned airport, quote, 200 miles deep inside Iran near what's called Isfahan, which just happens to be where Iran's largest atomic scientific center is located. That's probably just a coincidence.
Yeah.
Because remember we were talking about the Iranian that needs to be taken out and they need to secure. We're going to get into that in a minute. That's pretty coincidental. They landed 2 C-130 military transport planes in the airport that is no longer in use in an operation involving hundreds of special operations troops and military personnel. Both C-130 planes got stuck in the sand, quote, stuck in the sand, literally, and the U.S. destroyed them to prevent them from falling into Iranian hands, which is super normal. We did that in Iraq. I did that a couple times in Iraq, for one time specifically for a Marine 53 that got shot down that was supposed to exfil us. We had to blow it up. They deployed 3 new aircraft to extract all the U.S. personnel on the ground. There are videos circulating online of heavy clashes with presumably Iranian missiles raining down in that area in the Zagros Mountains during that exact same night. Iran sent pictures of the aftermath at the abandoned airport. Remember the abandoned airport where the C-130s got stuck? And it's a site of utter destruction. Like the videos are completely look like you have U.S. planes, you have possible Little Bird helicopter parts scattered all over the ground, and they're still smoking and even on fire. Iran actually claims, so the United States is claiming that we blew that shit up. Iran is claiming that they blew that shit up. Okay. Meanwhile, a second U.S. plane, an A-10 Warthog, also crashed on Friday near the Strait of Hormuz, according to 2 U.S. officials speaking to the New York Times. And in that instant, the lone pilot was safely rescued almost immediately. And all this after multiple planes and helicopters were destroyed or shot down, the documented heavy clashes, the hundreds of special operations troops and military personnel operating deep inside Iran, not a single U.S. soldier to this day, and they basically said this, was reported killed or even wounded. Not a single soldier was even wounded. I heard this was a pretty badass gunfight, bro. I heard this was a pretty badass fucking gunfight. Like, no joke. 200 miles behind enemy lines. Okay, and not even a single person was wounded, and Trump literally says that everybody is home safe and sound. So before I get into anything, what I think really happened, anything you want to say on that?
Um, I mean, we've talked about this in past podcasts, but the reports on our casualties and wounded, and now other media outlets are kind of questioning the narrative that's being posted, and some other like foreign outlets are saying much bigger numbers, you know. So it's I mean, I guess for anyone who's listening, read in between the lines if you don't think anyone's dying out there, you know.
Nobody's dying, dude, in this shit for America.
Yeah,
13, I mean,
right.
13 dead's nothing to mad
Yes.
respect to the 13 and their families. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any way, shape, or form with that. But having a hard time believing it right now at this point. And so
Yep.
what I really think happened. So the guys that were directly involved in this, I know for a fact, we know for a fact. So the individuals flying around were the 160th SOAR, Special Operations Air Regiment. And they're literally the top 0.5% of all aviators in the entire United States military. You could basically say planet fucking Earth. Like these guys, I flew with these guys. They're unbelievable. They could back a wet noodle up a wildcat's ass. I'm not kidding. Like they're crazy with what they can do with these fucking machines. So if the 160th SOAR is involved, more than likely the 82nd wasn't there. So you probably had, at the very, very least, it would have been the 75th Ranger Regiment and then other various special operations unit. Just having the 160th there by itself pretty much tells you that. Okay. Now, SEAL Team 6, or what their real name is Developmental Group, were pretty much the guys, it seems like they got into initial contact there, whether they were doing the initial CSAR or whatever it is. Now, they were also there with Air Force Pararescue. Now, Air Force Pararescue, or the PJs, Pararescue Jumpers, and I think I said this before, are the best kept secret in special operations. Like, if you got a kid that is talking about getting into special operations, I would highly recommend pushing them towards the PJs. They're wildly unknown and they're wildly respected in the community. Like I said, they're basically flying doctors. They're the number one search and rescue outfit on planet Earth. And so you had the PJs, you had Developmental Group, and you had the 160th SOAR. Now, the 160th SOAR would have been flying the Little Birds. All right. Now, they would when they brought those, each C-130 can carry about 2 Little Birds plus some heavy equipment or other stuff, and around like 80-ish dudes, like a company of dudes. And a company is going to going to it's going to be different depending on the actual unit, whether you're talking about the Green Berets or the Rangers or the SEALs or whatever it is, or the PJs or anything else. Like what a company of dudes is going to be variable depending on the element itself, but it's usually around 80-ish dudes. Okay. CAG was also there. So CAG is Combined Applications Group there, Delta. And so from what I understand, they were there for QRF. Now, QRF means Quick Reaction Force. What that is if you get into a bunch of shit, you call in QRF and they come dig your ass out and get you home. That's what QRF is for. Okay. And so CAG, from what my understanding, was on QRF, which means that if these guys got into it the way it sounds like they got into it, and it sounds like they got into it for hours, almost a 0% chance CAG wouldn't have inserted to help out the fucking developmental group guys. And honestly, when you're talking about CAG and you're talking about developmental group, they're interchangeable. They work with each other a lot. These guys will switch teammates. Like they'll switch, like they'll have one guy go over to SEAL Team 6 for a deployment, and then one of the SEAL Team 6 guys will come over to CAG to Delta for a deployment, and they cross train a lot like that. They're basically almost the same fucking people. I mean, in a lot of ways, like they get all the same kind of shit. And so what this is telling me, and this was in Istofan, which is the southwest region of Iran. Now, this is where we did Operation Raging Boner or Midnight Hammer, right? Where they fucking where they dropped all the missiles and bombs. And they're like, they don't have any nuclear capabilities anymore. Everything's been blown to shit. Everything's destroyed. And then half a year later, we're in this disaster that we're in right now. And so remember, Iran is a third the size of the United States. There's 100 million motherfuckers in Iran. It is a huge country. Okay. And so Isfahan is literally a town. It's like, it'd be like saying, like, I'm like, what's a well known Boise, Idaho, right? In a third of the United States. And to be like, it is a real big coincidence that this incident just happened to happen around Boise, Idaho, where we have all of our nuclear facilities at and where all of our uranium is. Remember, Joel, remember we were talking about what it was going to fucking take to get all that
Yeah,
uranium, a
I
thousand
mean,
pounds plus uranium out of that fucking site,
it sounds like
right?
if they had all those aircrafts down, they're already 200 miles in. It sounds like they're setting up to do that. And I want to know, like, if they're just blaming all the shit on bad intel or they're just that retarded. Because I mean, obviously
Yeah.
they're going to be ready for it, you know. And I think it's kind of
Hmm.
funny. Hegseth was talking when the draft was when they're talking about the draft, and Hegseth goes, he wants to keep all his options open, and so he's not saying we're not going to do the draft. And a good president isn't going to tell you his war plans. And then like every
Right.
speech after that, any it's all been about us getting the enriched uranium out, you know, like, and it's
Yep.
just the
They've been talking about it a lot.
hypocrisy of when these guys get in front of the camera and they stick their foot in their mouth, and then the next day, like, the base forget it what they said the day before. It makes no fucking sense to me.
Oh yeah. Yep, exactly. And so what I think when I look at this shit, because it's the exact same place as where all their uranium is and stuff, and we talked about this before in a podcast a few podcasts ago, that what would basically happen is you have to have an airfield, right? There was an airfield. You have to land in equipment. You use C-17s or C-130s for that because that's how you get equipment in it, or you throw it the fuck out with parachutes. That happens too. But you have to have an airfield anyway because you got to get the shit and the people the fuck out of there when they're done. So there's an airfield there. Check that box. Okay. Multiple C-130s for equipment and troop transportation, which was the little birds. Check that fucking box because there was also equipment in those things. It was also in the exact same place where Operation Midnight Hammer was, where all their uranium is. Boom. Check that box. Hundreds of special operations dudes there. Hundreds. Well, you're probably talking about, like I said, Rangers, SEALs, CAG, PJs, all the tiered elements. Boom. Check that fucking box. That's a lot of boxes already checking right there. And so what I think that there was and so that, like I said too, so the F-15E, the two-seater, that specific designed air, and I'm not an aircraft guy. So if you're an aircraft person out there and I'm fucking this up, like feel free to tell me I'm fucking it up. But the F-15E is basically like an anti-aircraft weapon system. They're what those, and it's a two-seater. So what they come in there and they do is they try to take out all the anti-aircraft stuff. They kind of specialize in that more than anything. Okay. And so that happened to be also where that F-15E got shot down was over the uranium site, which means it was probably trying to knock out anti-aircraft shit so we could get our C fucking 130s in there, so we could get our litter birds out, hundreds of special operations troops, and fucking equipment, which probably means they had some. Remember, we talked about the Department of Energy and they're specialized in all the nuclear shit and all that stuff. There's probably other people involved in that as well. And so I think that this was a uranium operation gone horribly, horribly wrong. I mean, that's what I'm seeing right now. And also it's not just me. I'm hearing this from other people as well, thinking that right now the United States is trying to pawn this off as a CSAR, a combat search and rescue operation, blah blah blah. We got our pilot safety out. We still don't know who the fucking pilot is. It still the pilot, him or her, has still not been identified. It's actually not the pilot. Like I said, it's the weapon systems operator, which would have sat in the back. Navigator, weapon systems operator. We still don't know who that individual is. Still hasn't been identified. But to think that they weren't really there, I think what the F-15s were doing is I think they were trying to knock out the anti-aircraft shit, right? So the C-130s could come in there to this airstrip, dump a couple hundred Rangers, SEALs, PJs, fucking CAG guys, like you name it, Green Berets, and then secure some kind of goddamn perimeter, blocking positions, right? So then you have equipment with loaders and tracos or whatever digging out all that tons and tons of rubble so you can get those canisters of uranium that are like as big as like basically like oxygen and acetylene canisters from like welders. And I think what happened is I think that they were going to try to do that, and the F-15 got shot down, and it blew the entire operation to complete shit. That's what I think happened.
Right.
Kind of like the Iranian hostage rescue from like 1980 or 79 or whatever it was, right? So Delta went in there. This is right when Delta was first stood up, and they had a really, really bad experience in Iran trying to do the hostage rescue they had to completely call it because they lost the C-130 and a bunch of other shit, and it turned into be a disaster. And this is very, very similar, and it's also in fucking Iran, ironically enough. But I really think
Well,
that what this was is I think that this was a uranium special operations op that went horribly wrong as soon as that F-18 got shot out of the sky. That's what I think.
right. Well, and I mean, who knows how well it was going before that happened? Obviously you want that to run anti-aircraft, but I just think it sounds like every time we try to do any sort of offensive in this war that we have totally underestimated the response, and just how um to me it makes more sense that either those planes got wounded, shot down, and couldn't take back off, or they just had horrible intel where to land these planes, or they got bombed on the ground because Iran was ready for it. Like they don't know the closest air
Yeah.
base to where it's at the same fucking place. Like they're not going to be protecting that one place where the enriched uranium is.
I think,
Like it just,
yeah. And Iran's obviously wildly prepared for that exact scenario. I mean, Trump's been talking about it for weeks. Like regular independent media people like us have been talking about it because Trump's been talking about it and Hexbeth's been talking about it. It's like it's been discussed repeatedly. To think, and it's 200 miles behind enemy lines, bro. I mean, that's 200 miles is a long fucking way. I mean, 200 miles is no joke, dude. Even if you're flying, like it's no bullshit to be flying in 200 miles in a fucking helo. It's gonna take you a minute to get there. Like you're gonna have some serious
well,
pucker fact going on.
and there's, and it's an elegant way to say there's troops on the ground without saying there's troops on the ground. It's reported that there's 200 to 300 soldiers like in that whole operation. You all think that was to rescue one guy, like they were already there, you
They're
know.
already there. So, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I probably should have said that earlier, but that's one of the reasons why it doesn't make sense that it was just a CSAR launch from fucking outside a ballistic missile range of Iran from a destroyer or like a carrier because it would take too
Right.
goddamn long. These guys were already like they were there for the CSAR immediately when that F-15 went down. Like they were ready to go. And which tells me that they were already either there or they were flying. They were en route and they were kind of
Right.
circling and about ready to drop that C-130 down. You know what I mean? After a bunch of F-18s, F-16s, and everything else just basically raid down fucking hell for however long, doing basically like what we would call on the ground like suppressive fire, you know? And then try to get these C-130s on the ground so all those guys could get out of those C-130s and fucking set up a perimeter. You know what I mean?
And
And yeah,
a
go ahead.
a lot of this stuff too, because Trump did a speech today talking about the rescue, and they propagandized it and made it all religious and fucking weird. But Trump was talking about how
Why don't
someone
you
was
play it?
leaking.
Do you have that?
I think you do. I don't know if you sent it. No, I got it. I just got to find it. Um, but Trump was talking, and this isn't the video, but earlier in the speech, Trump was talking about that someone's leaking information, and it's either they have someone within who is leaking information out to the media because the second pilot who was a stranded one, or not the second pilot, the weapons specialist, like that
Mhm.
was leaked information that there was somebody that we were looking for, or Iran has good enough eyes on the ground where they just said like, there's one because they were offering awards essentially for the pilot. Iran was, or so their media states. So
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
and
I don't
I
know
think,
about
like, I
that.
have no question in my mind I have no question in my mind that if the IRGC, which is, Iran's basically like their premier military unit right now. I'm sure they have other specialized outfits, I'm just not sure who they are. But,
Right,
dude, if you had CAG there, developmental group there, like tier 2 SEALs, SF dudes, Rangers, I have no doubt in my mind that they laid serious fucking waste to these dudes coming in. Like, no doubt
well,
in my mind. As long
yeah,
as they were avoiding, like, massive incoming, as long as they were avoiding anything from the air or, like, missiles coming in, because there's videos of a shit ton of dead Iranians in that exact
right,
area that are also being leaked, and, like, these guys but what's even more interesting is it's like, are they still there somehow, somewhere, bedded in somewhere, or did they get out too? Because when you're talking about
right,
hundreds of special operations dudes, and they got the weapon, weapon systems officer out of there from the F-15, did they exfil hundreds and hundreds of guys, or are their guys still there?
right,
Because they had 4 based on my understanding, they had 4 little birds. Now with 4 little birds, you're talking, like, maybe 3 guys on the sides, 6 guys, 8 guys-ish. I mean, depending on how heavily kitted they are and how much equipment they're gonna be carrying around with them, which is variable depending on the op, and if you're 200 miles into Afghanistan or talking Iran, um, you're gonna need some shit for sure, and so, like, there's no way that they exfilled hundreds of special operations dudes. There's no way they exfilled hundreds of special operations dudes, and especially if they lost one of the little birds, at least one of them, in 3 fucking little birds with
right,
the
yeah.
F-15, like, co-pilot. Like, there's a lot more
It
to the
sounds
story, dude, that we don't know. There's a lot more to the story.
yeah. Well, and this is on top of and this is gonna tie into some of the Hexess video. This is on top of we just fired 2, generals in the Army. Um, one was George, and the other one was the chaplain, who's been a chaplain for like 25 years and has served under every president. Nothing but glowing remarks from him. And a lot of this, one, I bet some of that conversation with that general was like, hey, we're going to go start bombing bridges and power plants. And he said, like, I don't know how I feel about that because I'm going to be the one who gets charged with war crimes if you get impeached or if the cabinet flips, and he probably didn't feel good about it, so Hexus fired him. And then the chaplain, I'm sure, had something to do with this crazy Christian Zionist fucking
I wonder if
movement
the
that's
chaplain was
taken over.
Catholic,
Yeah, I I wouldn't be surprised. We should probably find out because
because
I
the Catholics are the one sect of Christianity that does not have, like, a suck off Israel relationship with Israel. It's really the one
well,
group that doesn't.
and it goes with, like, it was the first time at the White House, like we said, they didn't have the Sunday mass for the Catholics. Girl who was on or the woman who was on the religious advisor board who was Catholic, like, it's really slowly getting, like, pushed into this Protestant Christian Zionist, like, nationalism,
Yeah, the
dude.
Catholics are
It's
being
fucking
excluded with purpose for sure because they don't have the Zionist belief that a lot of Christian sects do.
right.
You know what I mean? They
And
fully believe that you're saved through the blood and the body of Jesus, and they don't believe in the third temple or the reestablishment of the Israeli state or, like, any of that stuff to get to heaven or promote,
but
what
and
would end up being, like, the end game of Christianity in Revelations. Like, they're very,
and the
very anti that.
crazy thing about all this is, like, the Zionist versus the Christian Zionist, and the Zionist is the Jerusalem Jew Zionist is essentially using the Christians to bring on their Messiah, and then the Christians think like, "Hey, you're wrong, and that's gonna be our Messiah who
It's
comes
gonna be
back."
Jesus again.
And yeah, it's going to be Jesus who comes back, and then you guys are either going to bow down and revert, or we're just going to be done with you. And it's like they're both like using each other in this weird way where they both hope they're wrong in the end, and they're going to be fucking enemies again. Like it makes
Yep.
no fucking sense. All
That
to
is it's totally
bring up,
true. It's yep, it's 100% true. It's like, "But the enemy of my enemy is my friend," or whatever, kinda like that.
yeah,
But it's like if this is a real second coming thing that we're fighting for, which has been described repeatedly into our military and through our leadership, and
right.
you're gonna play a video here in a second to where, like, Pete Hegseth basically identifies the rescue of this pilot with Jesus and the three-day resurrection and, like, all that stuff and being in a cave, everything else. It's like eventually they are gonna get to the point where they will become at odds, like,
Yeah.
but that's not really seen either.
No,
So,
it's the and it goes back to like Hegseth that he wrote a book and he talks about the Crusades a lot and how he's a crusader and he would have been a crusader to stop the Muslim movement. He has crusader tattoos all over him, like this is this extreme, yeah, it's just a fucking he's he's crazy, dude. And this is what we're talking about
a lot of craziness
in
happening
the
around there, around DC.
video, and this is Trump and Pete Hegseth talking about the rescue, and this is how Hegseth wanted to tie this into like a biblical story, essentially.
One downed airman evaded capture for more than a day, scaling rugged ridges while hunted by the enemy. When he was finally able to activate his emergency transponder, his first message was simple and it was powerful. He sent a message: God is good. In that moment of isolation and danger, his faith and fighting spirit shone through. You see, shot down on a Friday, Good Friday, hidden in a cave, a crevice, all of Saturday, and rescued on Sunday, flown out of Iran as the sun was rising on Easter Sunday. A pilot reborn, all home and accounted for, a nation rejoicing. God is good. One day.
And with all that being said, like I'm super glad that the guy got rescued and all that shit. Like I don't
Oh,
want to
yeah, it has
see
nothing to do with that. Yep.
this isn't anything to do with that. And I think it's a great story if he was wounded and climbed up the mountain and he was able to hold out. Like I'm like
He'll be I'll tell you what, he'll
make a
be
movie
like
about
the
it.
premier guest at SEER school. Survival,
Yeah,
evasion, rescue, and escape, because all those pilots have to go through SEER. And if that story is the story of what happened, he or she, whatever, male, female, did a fucking excellent job, like
right.
evading and escaping and getting to where they're at, to be rescued, which is another weird thing for me, that it would be like real high up on this ridge. It'd be a very difficult rescue outside of having birds. I don't know how those birds don't get shot down. I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like there's so much more to this story that we're missing somehow. I'd like to at least know who that weapons officer was to get that person's story on shit. But dude,
Right.
that video is so par for the course, dude. It's we've had the most defections, like as far as I know, like maybe in military history, of wanting to be in the military anymore and like deploy. And it's all because either A, what the fuck are we fighting for? Which seems to be a
Right.
big question. Or B, like, I'm not fighting for the end of the world. Like, I'm not deploying to fight for like revelations to happen, because
Right.
you get admirals on goddamn carriers that are going on intercom systems talking about how we're fighting to bring back the second coming of Jesus Christ
And
and
these are
tick off
also things
revelations.
that and these are also things that Hegseth and some of these leaders have talked about before they're ever in Trump's cabinet. These people we're talking at whether they're different speaking events or religious events, and um I really recommend people who, if you have the inclination, just go look up Pete Hegseth's pastor of his church. And this is a person who spoke to our soldiers. I'm pretty sure he spoke at the Sunday sermon. And just think of look or just listen to some of the ideology and the stuff he thinks about, because for me personally, it's not stuff I want in mainstream. You know, it's a lot of talk towards women, a lot of just psycho religious side, you know. And if you want to be like that, be like that. Just don't fucking. It doesn't need to be in our government, you know.
Well, it's intentionally was supposed to be cut out of our government with intention,
Yeah.
like purposely.
Right.
That was the whole point. Um, I'll tell you what, I ran his trolling Hegseth as hard as they're trolling Trump right now, though, man. They had that Hegseth
Oh,
Lego. They always use Lego people. It's hilarious to me, whatever. But man, they had a good one on him, dude. They had all that stuff, right? All like the
yep.
crazy shit he's been involved in and like accusations he's had and everything, like just direct, like whatever. Iran is doing, I mean, they're releasing I feel like they're releasing like a couple, like at least a video a day, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they
It
really are.
seems like it.
Or like tweet. Iran just
Yep.
released a tweet and I don't have it in front of me, but it basically said Americans. They were addressing American people. They have a tendency to address the American people a lot in these videos and in these tweets. And to try to basically say that they're not our enemy, that we're that we don't we're not we shouldn't be worried about them, that we should be worried about our own fucking people. And you know, unfortunately, I'm finding myself in agreement with them on that in a lot of ways, which is presenting an inner turmoil in me. But um, yeah, I mean, I totally forgot where I was going with
And
that, dude.
well, I do because I mean, it's true though. You know, like you want to be American first. You're taught to have this like blind patriotism to your country, and if someone's fucking with your country, you need to stand up to it. And but like one, you fucking lived it. You
Yeah,
gave up you gave up your whole prime of your life to a war that was kind of fabricated and made up, you know? Like, and I think you sitting back and questioning it
yeah,
is I think it's totally fucking normal, you know? Like, and that's the whole, and
yeah.
it's
And
not
we got
questioning because you're not
yeah,
American. You want the money spent here. That list you had of
mhm,
like the money, the time we've done in the war, and the amount of things we could have done in this country with the money we spent in this war over this last month. And these are just over this last month. You know, Trump is adding $7 trillion to our debt, you know, and especially because what happened with the tariffs. He just asked for another $1.5 trillion. So all his spending bills are going to add up to $7 trillion in debt. This isn't because like
God.
we're fucking peace loving fucking hippies. It's because we're tired of getting fucked, man. You
Yeah, man.
know?
And it's like guys like me. It reminds me of the Ayn Rand book, We the Living. Ayn Rand wrote this book. It was one of her first novels. You know, people can hate. There's a lot of people out there that really hate that woman, but
Right.
she had a great ability to write, and she wrote a book called We the Living, and it was basically like like during pretty much the Russian Revolution, which she escaped from. She escaped from the like the Bolshevik Revolution and came to America. Her family did, but that was a lot. Well, like a lot of her memories come from. And the first people that they turned on were like the veterans that fought for the Marxists because they almost didn't like the fact that not only did they believe in the cause, but they had fought for the cause. And it made the people that just believed in it and didn't fight for it kind of feel bad about themselves a little bit. And then so like the veterans got persecuted and then killed. Like they got hunted and killed. A lot of the Russian veterans in the Bolshevik Revolution. They weren't Marxist enough. You know what I mean? Like they weren't for the cause enough, even though they had stacked bodies for the cause. And the
Right.
people that were hunting them had not, you know? And it's like I see that a little bit with veterans now. Like think about like how they talk about Joe Kent. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you have these absolute fucking dirtbags that have never goddamn spilled any blood for this country. They haven't spilled a fucking drop of blood for the United States. The Mark Levins, the Ben Shapiro's, um, the other like the Dan Bongino's, all those types, dude, that are talking are calling guys like Joe Ken a coward because he's calling out this administration and the bullshit that they're doing. And none of those guys shed a fucking drop of blood for this country. But do you think that they would put him in prison in a fucking second? It doesn't matter that he has 11 combat deployments and 6 Bronze Stars. They'd put him in prison right fucking now. Right fucking now. Or they'd kill him. They'd fucking kill him. Like, I don't think for a second that Mark Levin, if he had the power, wouldn't do some fucking killing himself. Do you know what I'm saying? For the cause, for the Israeli cause
Yeah.
and
Well,
stuff.
and the crazy and the crazy thing is happening is like with the turnover we had in our military between the people who've resigned and fired at leadership levels, and you're getting a bunch of yes men for Trump, and this is like worst case scenario, but like that's what you want if you're going to have a coup. Like you want people who will put American soldiers on our streets if something weird happens, like the elections are coming up, and during war you pretty much have carte blanche to fire people and promote people without the standard like means of promotion. You appoint somebody there, and that's kind of what's happening. They're and the funny thing is a lot of these people
Yeah.
were yes men at the beginning of Trump's election, and they were already appointed by him, and they were on like Joe Kent. They're like, okay, I thought you were like not about going to war and getting dragged into one of these things, and they were
That's
either
why Tulsi
fired or
needs to resign,
resigned.
man. Yeah.
Yeah,
They're talking about firing Tulsi. I'm like, fucking resign. Why would you let yourself
yes,
get fired? Do the fucking
yep,
podcast rounds. Like, send a resignation letter on your fucking terms. Don't let them fire you. Like, fuck that, man. You're gonna like, don't ride for the
right.
brand on that shit. Like, fuck those guys. And
Well, she's already taken a lot of fucking heat too for
yeah,
like some of
tons
the
of heat.
hearings she had to go through, and like that's
She's
and the
trying to
whole
walk
thing
this
is,
weird line, man, and it's not
I
working.
well, and just Trump will throw anybody under the bus, dude. Look at just the turnover, and people will say like, "But that's just a good leader. He needs to have somebody in that position, and you can't keep somebody there who doesn't want." And it's like, no, he throws people under the bus. Rarely is it pretty, you know. And I bet in a week or two he'll be saying real nasty things about Pam Bondi. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
just
dude.
how it is,
Oh, dude. Trump, yeah. He thinks he's been talk about a guy who doesn't think his fucking shit stinks, man. God damn with that
Yeah.
guy. Also, how's the international community feeling about this war? I got a pretty good video here I'm going to play you because Germany and France, they're so concerned with World War III that they're not letting their fighting age males leave their country for more than 3 months. They're literally not letting them do it. Like they're telling them to stay that they have to stay here literally for service. They're literally telling them that they can't leave the country for more than 3 months. This is happening in Germany and France because they might be conscripted into service for World War III. And I have a little video here that I'm going to play because this is pretty like we kind of said this. We're pretty isolated. You know what I mean? We produce our own energy. We have the Atlantic on one side, the Pacific on the other, Canada and North Mexico, which is not a fucking threat. I don't give a shit what anybody says in the South. We're
Yeah.
very, very isolated. We produce our own energy in a lot of ways. A lot of these countries are not isolated, man. Like they depend on the international market. They depend on NATO for defense. They depend on a lot of different things because they're not geographically as advantageous as the United States is. We're very, 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 very lucky tactically to be where we're at, and a lot of these other countries are not. And, me and Joel were talking about something earlier, and we brought this up before, where it was like a lot of these countries are now rationing energy and oil. They're shutting down their airports for a day or two at a time. They're not letting people like there's going to be days of the week where they're not going to be allowed to fill up gas in their cars. Like, could you imagine the United States if they're like, Friday through Sunday, because it's not the work week, you can no longer put gas in your car. Like that shit's
Well,
happening over there.
and
And these
it
guys are
just
about ready
trick
to be conscripted into service because these leaders are genuinely concerned with another world war, and they need to have fighters.
And all that stuff trickles down economically, you know, it slows the whole economy down because you don't have your normal means of transportation, consumption, consumerism, you know, so it's just this slow, like this is it's
Mhm.
if this goes as bad as it could goes, and I don't think people realize how quick this could happen, in 5 months, we could have a totally different arrangement of geopolitical groups and people, and that's when America's gonna feel it, because that's when our interest rates are gonna go up. That's when, you know, and I mean, this is all too it's all too convenient. Like it's like it's a and I've said this before, it's like it's intentional. Like we've talked about how important the petrol dollar is to America for as long as I've been alive. And it's now we're trying to kill it so we could go to a digital currency, you know. And there's
Yep.
problems with the petrol bullet with the
And remember
petrol
what we said
dollar, but
about
at this
Putin? Remember what we said about Putin earlier? Like, not on the
yep,
podcast, but just me and you?
yep, 100%,
And
dude.
he
And then with
wants ev
everything going to the yuan, you
yeah,
know, everything, and
all the
that's the whole
European energy trading is gonna be in the yen with, like, Russia and, like, European any kind of oil or natural gas stuff in Europe is all gonna be trading the yen now, not the dollar. Like, they made
and
that very,
that's
very clear. That's a fucking problem
the
for the United States. Big
first
problem.
ball to drop, you know, and then I don't, yeah, it's
Well,
just it's crazy to me.
let me play this clip really quick because this is from CB News, which is an international news outlet, because I just wanna verify what I'm saying about, like, outside of the United States, as isolated as we are, there's people that are, like, states that are very, very, very concerned, and they're experiencing much higher prices than we are, even though our prices are already starting to, especially gas, are already starting to shoot up astronomically. But here's basically what they're saying.
Germany have now launched a voluntary military service for 18-year-old men. It could become compulsory. And they are now putting into law that all fighting age men up to the age of 45, are going to have to ask permission to leave the country for more than 3 months. France, similarly, are going to be introducing voluntary national service this summer. They'll pay people for 10 months. And you think back to Rishi Sunak and his plans for voluntary national service and how people sort of derided him, but you do wonder whether ultimately this might be coming and whether we are living in a world where we haven't quite caught up to the fact that things are very, very dangerous.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, man, that's that tells you a little bit where the rest of the world's at, because we've already talked about a draft here, right? Because we're already in it, and now you have these other states, just starting with Germany and France, that are like, if you're 18 to 45, I mean, that's a huge age gap, bro.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, if you're
Well,
18 to 45, guess what? You can't leave the country for more than 3 months, and we need to know where you're fucking at, and you need to be able to come back here immediately. Huh? People are
and
worried.
I mean, they produce 20% of the oil, you know, like the impact that has on the countries that are close to them, you know, like when the power starts shutting down and hospitals are going black and stuff like that, like it's going to be these countries are going to be forced to make a move. And I have a feeling it's not going to be the direction we think, you know? We've
Mhm.
pushed we've turned away a lot of our allies, and I understand, like I said, I we could talk about NATO and how much we've funded it. Like I understand why people are tired of some of these relationships we have, but we're putting ourselves on a fucking island, you know?
Oh, we definitely are now. I mean, us and Israel, that's it. The island is Israel. That's the island we're
Yep.
on. We're on the island of Israel. Like, that's fucking it. If Israel goes down, like, it seems like we go down, and vice versa.
Yep.
I mean, nobody else is even remotely fucking interested. And we talked about, like, the war economy thing. Do you wanna get into, like, all the stuff that they're talking about cutting for this $1.5 trillion military budget that Trump's asking for?
Yes. So in that budget, they're asking for $1.5 trillion and cutting, and this is only 10% of things. So when we're talking about money, this is 10% of the whole budget and the things that they're going to cut to make way for the $1.5 trillion spent in defense. And these are some of the things. Ty has a list of the things that they're going to cut.
Dude, this list is extensive. I got like a 2-page list because remember we played a video of Trump talking about how like we can't pay for fucking childcare. We can't pay for food, like subsidies for kids. We can't pay for school lunch. What? School lunch? Childcare? Gas prices? We got to pay for war, baby. We got to pay for the fucking war machine. What are you guys talking about right now? And so anyway, we already have a list here. We've already been provided a list. So, and also remember, Iran pays when Hegseth, Trump, and these guys are like, if Iran would just pay a little bit more to their people and not so much money on war, maybe they'd have a good society. Iran's entire military budget is $10 billion. $10 billion total. The United States last year was $1 trillion. $1 trillion. I don't know how many 10 billions it takes to get into a 10 for that. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,
990.
100, I guess. It's 100. It's 110 billions.
Yeah.
My math brain kicked in really quick there, Joel. It doesn't work most of the time.
Yeah.
And so
mine never works.
And now it's a 1.5 trillion. 1 trillion wasn't enough. 1 trillion wasn't enough. And we could have lost up to 14 fucking aircraft in one day on Easter Day. Or maybe we only lost like 4 or 5, but we could have lost up to 14 based on what I'm hearing. And that's with our $1 trillion military budget.
And every base in that region is, if
totally
not been,
destroyed.
Yeah,
yep.
Exactly.
Completely annihilated. We have soldiers and Navy and Marines living in hotels in the UAE. Dude, fuck. Okay, so Trump is seeking to pay for his new $1.5 trillion military budget by cutting the following resources. I'm not sure if I'm going to because it's like 2 pages. It's a lot. But some of this stuff is really substantial. Okay. Hey, ranchers and farmers, listen up. Grants for farmers and agricultural research, $510 million, gone. Loans for rural small businesses. This is fully eliminated. The entire program, $82 million, gone. Support for farmers and food markets, fully eliminated, $61 million, gone. School meals and food education for children, broad, fully eliminated, $240 million, fully eliminated. Community building grants, $659 million, eliminated. Support for minority-owned businesses, fully eliminated, $47 million. Economic development grants for communities, $449 million, gone. Weather forecasting, fisheries, and coastal protection. This is NOAA. $1.6 billion, gone. Scientific research and technology standards, $993 million. Support for American exports and trade, $150 million. Broadband and internet access programs for people that have a hard time getting internet, $2.2 billion, gone. Funding for public schools, bro. This is $8.5 billion, gone. Vocational training and adult education, fully eliminated. Vocational training and adult education, fully eliminated, $1.5 billion. College access and higher education support, $2.7 billion, gone. $15.2 billion infrastructure, roads, bridges, infrastructure projects, $15 billion. Sayonara to American infrastructure. $1.1 billion, home energy efficiency and clean energy programs, gone. $1.1 billion scientific research funding. $386 million environmental cleanup programs. $150 million cutting edge clean energy research. $4 billion helping pay home heating and cooling bills for low income families. That might come in kind of fucking handy with what we're about ready to get hit with when it comes to energy. Gone, $4 billion. And that's also a fully eliminated. So when I say fully eliminated, the entire program's gone. It's dismissed. There's nothing left. It's off the fucking books entirely. That program is off the books. $768 million refugee resettlement assistance. We're going to have some problems with refugees, especially in Europe. It's kind of weird how they're like, we bomb all these Muslim countries and all these Muslims want to fucking leave their Muslim countries. Why are they going to Europe and the United States? I don't fucking understand it. Gone. $819 million. Care and shelter for migrant children. Okay. $775 million. Local anti-poverty programs. $5 billion. Public health programs, mental health services, and disease prevention. I'll say that again. Public health programs, mental health services, and disease prevention. What are they talking about when they talk about mass shooting again?
Yeah, mental health.
Mental health. Oh, okay.
Having access to mental health, free
That's
mental
interesting.
health. And a lot of those programs are free mental health programs that they're like call-in programs. And yeah, it's fucking sorry. Go ahead.
Weird, right?
Continue.
Weird that they would cut those. Jeez, weird. $5 billion. Another $5 billion. Medical research, the NIH. $129 million. Healthcare quality and safety research. $356 million. Emergency preparedness and disaster response. Disaster response. Now you're talking about FEMA, wildfire. We just had one of the driest seasons in the history of Colorado ever recorded ever in humanity. That Colorado has existed as a little square box in the United States and North America. They're going to cut that shit.
And it's forecasted a high potential to have a super El Nino year, which super El Nino year on top of a drought year is like the worst case scenario. And I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying mark my words, but let's wait until about August and see if we're having water issues on the western side of the country with like finding enough water for people.
Dude, I mean, even by August, right? I mean, we're going to have big time problems with that. That's natural disasters, dude. You're going to, okay. 1.3 billion FEMA community disaster preparedness. It's the exact same. So you can take that 336 million and combine it to 1.3 million with FEMA and emergency disaster response. Gone. 707 million cyber security protection for critical infrastructure. 52 million airport and transportation security. 40 million protection against chemical and biological weapons threats.
Heard it. I've heard some rumors about ticks being released.
Remember that? So there was, I don't even think I got through this, but I said there was that Iranian tweet, and I think I totally dicked it up and didn't get all the way through it, but it basically said, "Dear Americans, if the United States experiences a terrorist attack, it's not us. Our ballistic missiles can't reach you, number one. And number two, I would be looking at your own government in Israel."
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how they're like, we're going to go ahead and eliminate these protections against biological weapons and chemical weapons. $53 million funding for Homeland Security operations. Basically falls along that same line. 3.3 billion community development block grants for local neighborhoods. This is a fully eliminated program. 1.3 billion affordable housing construction grants. Fully eliminated. It's not like Americans are having a hard time finding a home, right, Joel? No. Unless you're is everybody fucking boomers? Are we all fucking boomers? Apparently. $393 million programs to reduce homelessness. $539 million housing assistance for people living with AIDS, HIV. This is fully eliminated. $489 million housing and services for Native American communities. $489 million housing and services for Native American communities. Jesus fuck. 50 million grants to help communities build more housing, fully eliminated. $60 million enforcement of fair housing and anti-discrimination laws. 58 million home buyer and rental counseling services, fully eliminated. 45 million renewable energy development programs, fully eliminated. 1.7 billion grants for local law enforcement and public safety, Joel. 1.7 billion grants for local law enforcement and public safety. 20 billion civil rights mediation and legal access programs, fully eliminated. 1.6 billion job training for at-risk youth, fully eliminated. Job training for at-risk youth. That's like Job Corps, things like that for kids that had a fucking pretty bad childhood, which probably wasn't their fault. Fuck those kids. 395 million jobs programs for low-income seniors. That is the boomers. 234 million worker safety and labor protection programs. 101 billion or million enforcement of equal pay and workforce anti-discrimination laws. 46 million programs to combat child labor and forced labor abroad. That is an abroad program I can probably fucking get behind, as much as I hate money abroad. 2 billion international humanitarian aid. 1.2 billion food aid for hungry families abroad. $4.3 billion, global health and disease prevention programs. Don't worry, Joel. I only got like 15 left. 2.7 billion funding for the United Nations and international partnerships. 634 million international economic and treasury programs. 315 million democracy and anti-corruption programs. 486 million grants and public transit grants for public transit. So much for public transit. 4.3 billion electric vehicle charging infrastructure. 300 you got to make sure we take care of all those oil people. That's way more important.
Right.
Like fuck single point energy, fuck plasma energy, fuck all this other shit, fuck not paying for energy, right? We got to make sure that the coal and oil people are always making billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, and also killing scientists that are coming up with the different forms of energy. Got to make sure they're able to do that. 374 million airline service for rural and small communities. Airline service for rural and small communities. 145 million grants for suitable and equitable infrastructure. 204 million loans for investment for underserved communities. 1.4 billion IRS taxpayer services and enforcement. I'll actually fucking get behind that one. 100 million air pollution monitoring and reduction programs. That's fully eliminated. 1 billion EPA grants to states for environmental protection. 2.5 billion clean drinking water and wastewater infrastructure. That's 2.5 billion for clean drinking water. 90 million grants to reduce diesel pollution. What the fuck? Okay. 3.4 billion NASA space and earth science research. 200 dude, they're getting rid of all the NASA astronomy programs. Yeah. 297 million NASA technology innovation programs. 1.1 billion international space station operations. Fuck. Do you think we should know if a comet? Do you think we should know if an asteroid's going to hit the Earth?
Yeah, I think we should.
There's probably some other stuff that's important too about that shit. 309 million small business development and entrepreneurship programs. I only got 2 left, Joel. 2 left. 170 million small business administration operations. 158 million loans for small businesses. Eliminated.
So, when you hear this list, it's talking about segments of the population who are going to need it the most, and we're talking about coming in to possibly the worst economy we've seen since the Great Depression, possibly even worse, and we're cutting all these programs, and the whole thing too is like Project 2025 talks a lot about cutting any sort of social program, and if there is something that's being done that's through the government, make it fucked up and then privatize it, And there's one thing, like, I don't agree. Government spending does get out of hand, and I think the system allows it to get out of hand. But one thing that happens with a government job,
Joel, and what we're talking about is it's not that it's not going to be spent. It's going to be spent. It's just going to be spent killing motherfuckers
somewhere else.
In the Middle East.
That's it. And that's
killing Americans and that's, too, by the way.
And there's places like Yampa who like depends on some of those that grant money to be funneled in, because like it's a tiny little town that has no tax revenue. So when you start talking about these huge infrastructures, like they're reliant on some of these programs. And I don't know if Yampa exactly is reliant on a specific program, but I'm saying towns like that, are the people that get affected, and too, with like a government job, people could bitch about government jobs and all that. What happens when you get a government job? You get a pension, you get health insurance, and if corporations prove to me that they wanted to take care of their employees, I'd be all for privatizing stuff. If you said like, we're going to make sure you guys are compensated, you're going to have great retirements, pensions, health insurance, but corporations time and time again, unless they're unionized, have said, fuck the workers, fuck any of that stuff, and you're just a disposable worker, and until corporations like step up and say like, do that shit, yeah, I'm all for privatizing stuff and not having the government take care of everything. But all I've seen corporations do when they're not held with some accountability is they don't care about the little guy. And that goes all the way back to Dodge and Ford. So that we're talking Model T era when Ford and Dodge were two competing competitors. And then there was a ruling that was done in the Supreme Court where Ford was a racist fucker, total
Oh
anti-Semite,
yeah,
but
he was also a
but
big
he wanted
anti-Semite. He
he
was a big
wanted to
like
treat
a legitimate
yeah,
anti-Semite.
huge
Mhm.
anti-Semite, but he wanted to treat his employees good. And Dodge had a thing in the court that said they weren't entitled to give their employees more money. The money belonged to the shareholders. And that was a precipice that set up like American capitalism. And so Ford was fighting to give that money back to his employees, where Dodge said, no, it's entitled to our shareholders. And from that moment, that's kind of been the precipice from that was in 2000 or 2000, like 19, it was early 1900s when that happened. And
Right.
since that moment, like that's been the precipice, you know?
That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting. That's interesting that Dodge, like, had such a big hand in that.
And they were not the their original Dodge Brothers symbol had the Star of David in it.
Did it
I mean,
really?
and yeah,
Did it really? I
uh,
didn't know that either,
yeah,
obviously.
they were, um, and this is, you
Oh,
know, like,
man.
and I try to avoid like the hate of a race or a people because that's just not how I'm wired, you
No,
know.
'cause
But like
and we talk
the
about it, and I wanna clarify that really quick just for anybody that's just real quick, I'll let you get back to your point, but Israel is a state, not a religion.
right,
When we're talking about Israel, we're talking about a state, not a fucking religion. Like, we can talk about any other goddamn state. We can talk shit about the United States all day, right? We don't go to jail for it. Doesn't seem like I mean, people are getting hemmed up for talking about Israel. It's a state. It's not even the United States. It's
right.
just a fucking state. We can talk. We're gonna say whatever the fuck we want about it, and we don't give a shit what the fuck you call us. Say whatever you want in the comments or anything else. Go fuck yourself. We don't fucking care. Go ahead.
To me, just the outside of what we're just talking about, it's really disappointing that we we say as soon as a program's called a social program, there's a group of people that just scoff at it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because sometimes when you hit hard times or where there's a grant for an old house, like sometimes you call upon that socialist money. And um, I would much rather have that money spent in America fixing our mental health problems, letting small businesses get loans out so they could actually grow, grants out, you know, but we're sending our
That's what
fucking
everybody
money
voted
to
for. That's
yeah.
what you voted for. Like everybody
Mhm.
like voted for economy, dude. You know what I mean? Like gas prices. I'm seeing all this like I saw a Trump Benjamin Netanyahu. I did that sticker on a gas pump, which was pretty fucking Where was that at? I should have taken a picture of it. Shit. But it was
Have
Trump
you
and
seen the
Netanyahu, and it's like, "We did that," and it's pointed at the fucking diesel. It was pointed right at a diesel pump, which is like was like, shit, 5.30, $6 a gallon. Diesel's crazy right now. It's so
yeah,
bad. Oh, man, dude. Also, one last thing too before, um, maybe we close this sucker up, but Trump
yep,
also said something that was really interesting about using a nuclear weapon. He made a comment. I have a video of it, but maybe I'll just say he basically said that the entire country can be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night. And he was talking about Tuesday night, which is the night that our podcast will come out. So we recorded on
right,
Monday, but which means that he's basically Israel's already talked about the nuclear option, and this is in a recording. I mean, we can look it up. It's on X. You know, I don't think I'll play it, but he just basically said that it's like a 10-second recording, and he pretty much just said that because he's pissed off, you know, about all the birds that got shot down, especially when it made him look a fool, right? Big time,
yeah.
because he says all this shit, and then Iran puts out all these videos like just making fun of him a lot, and then
I
literally 24 hours later, we're like, we might have lost 14 fucking birds, possibly, maybe
right.
not that many, but it could have been up to about that many birds, and now he's talking about saying that we can just that the entire country can get taken out in one night, and maybe we'll just do it tomorrow night. That's the only thing it
Yeah,
means is a
like
nuclear strike. That's fucking it. That's all he's talking about.
well, and even that language is fucking a real slippery slope, especially when you're talking about some of Iran's allies who um, have enough gall to stand up to us from from a homeland perspective, you know?
Yeah. And based on I've been hearing too, so I read that Russia got a hold of Israel basically, and said that it told Israel they use a nuclear weapon in Iran, that Israel will no longer exist.
Yeah,
Russia
I
told
saw
Israel that.
some. Yep.
Yeah, they basically said, Israel, you nuke Iran and you're fucking gone. You will never exist in this realm again, ever. Your entire civilization will be eliminated from the face of the fucking earth, which basically tells me that Russia will drop a 50 megaton nuclear warhead right on top of Tel Aviv.
All right.
Poof, and it's over. At that point, for sure. Because they detonated like a 70 megaton nuclear warhead, like I want to say in like the 1980s or 1990s underground. It set off fucking earthquakes and volcanoes.
Right.
Well, a lot of people, I don't know, people may not know this. So Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I'll just be quick about this, were like 15 kiloton warheads, and it created a ton of damage. They were kilotons, they weren't megatons. It takes 100 kilotons to make 1 megaton. 100 kilotons to make 1 megaton. So if you're detonating a 70 megaton nuclear warhead under fucking ground in like the 1980s, and it sets off earthquakes and volcanoes, do the fucking math on how many
Right.
kilotons that is compared to Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Well,
And
and
the
how
fact
they
that we're
found
just
out.
talking about nuclear strikes like it's like we're having coffee. Like Trump's up there like, yeah, take the whole fucking country out tomorrow. Maybe I'll just drop a 100 megaton nuclear warhead on fucking Tehran. Or Israel saying the same thing. And then it's weird that like the rational actor is like Russia basically saying, you guys fucking do this shit and you're
Right.
over. At least they said it to Israel. They didn't say it to us, but they definitely said it to Israel.
Right.
Yeah.
Fucking A. I don't even
Take a breath.
know, man.
Hey, you know what's good is we're not actually, Jesus Christ, we are pretty color coordinated. At least our shirts are kind of color coordinated.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of
I'm
black.
glad you wore the green hat, man. We had a little bit of distinction. And I didn't say this at the beginning. Hey, if you like us, follow us, rate us 5 stars, share it with a friend. I should have said it at the beginning. Did I say it? I don't think I said it. I feel like
And
it's
two,
important to
like
say, I guess.
you guys have any call outs or any ideas of things we could talk about, like throw it in, you know? I mean, I think me and Ty have wanted to talk about a few other things, but this Iran war has just
Yeah.
kind of spiraled, so it gives
I
us a
really
lot to
wanted to
talk
talk about
about. But
Zoroastrianism and how it was like pretty much the very first monotheistic religion on planet Earth, and it originated in Iran and pretty much kicked off the Abrahamic religions, which
right.
is Christianity, Islam, and Judaism before they even existed, and it started in Iran. And there's a huge history that goes back like 6,000 years before Plato for that one.
Well,
But
and
we
and that's
won't
a
get into it.
and like one last thing about that country is like the Palestinians, Iran, and they call themselves Palestinians, and they called themselves Palestinians um, before Israel was created, before Jerusalem, before all that stuff. They're some of the most ancient, like religious-based people on this country, and we think that we're gonna stomp them out in 2 months, and it's gonna be like the real easy war. No, they've been around forever, and they're gonna
Yeah,
continue to
exactly.
be around.
And if you're out there and you want our second episode was literally the entire episode, and it was almost 2 hours, was just about what ancient land heritage means and a cost comparison between like Hebrew heritage in Israel and Native American heritage and German heritage and Irish heritage, what all these different heritages mean and like what that means for like, like a land right. And it's pretty deep. We go deep into the history of Jerusalem, how far back it goes, how many times it was conquered and destroyed and re-inhabited, and like who let them re-inhabit, and like all these different things. It's a pretty awesome history. So I
Well,
highly recommend listening to the second episode.
and just like this started in Trump's first term, and it's when Trump made Jerusalem, like he called it, like he gave it back to Israel,
The embassy.
essentially,
They let him put the
the
embassy in Jerusalem.
embassy,
Mhm.
and like Trump's on coins in Israel, like with Netanyahu, and like they're on like how we have commemorative quarters and stuff. You know, it's like he's on a bunch of coins in Israel as like like their savior.
You
And
know what
this
they're
is,
doing
I
that here
mean,
too with him?
yeah,
I think they're putting his signature on. I don't know if it's the dollar bill. They're doing a few things with Trump where they're going to put his signature. I think they're putting God, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's the monetary system, and they're gonna put a signature and, like, a face on 2 different forms of currency. I think one's a bill and one's a coin, and so I'm not sure, but it's not surprising. Like we said, Trump's the golden calf, man. Like, he's the golden calf. He is basically worshipped like he's the second coming, but he's a false idol.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
100%.
it's just
If
really
anything,
unfortunate we're in this
he's
situation right now. But you got anything else, brother?
no, that's it, man.
All right, we should have a guest on the next episode. I think we have a political science professor from the University of Montana Western that should be joining us. And so if you guys have any questions, this guy is always the most well-read dude in the room. His name's Sean Udaly. He I feel like a kindergartner when I talk to this guy. And so if you guys have any questions or anything, he's a constitutionalist. He's just wildly academic with all this stuff. And if there's anything specific, please send us a text, put it in the comments, something like that, and we'll ask him because he's absolutely worth asking. So good to go. Love you, brother.
Love you, brother. Have a good evening, man.